Howdy again, everybody. This is Doc. It is July 1st. It's a beautiful day. Happy Canada Day to any of our thoroughbred fans watching in the Great White North. And of course, July 1st means that HISA is now in effect across the land, at least in the United States. And so what exactly does that mean for the racetracks and the racing industry? We're not sure yet. We do know some things, we don't know others. There's still a lot of questions that are up in the air, and I think there's a lot of things that are not going to really be figured out until some of these things are tested. But there are some things that we do know, and I have been trying to follow this as closely as I can and watch some of the seminars and webinars that HISA has put out and has had with some of the horsemen's groups and different racing publication organizations to answer at least hopefully some of these questions that I guess we do have some answers and we don't have answers to other things, and some things are just going to be delayed a little bit. So obviously one of the big things that everybody knew about from the start was that there were going to be legal challenges to HISA, and so far those legal challenges are either in appeal because they have been denied at the lower court level, or they've just been denied outright. And the most recent one that was denied was kind of an emergency request for an injunction put on by a couple of horsemen's associations and the Jockeys Guild to prevent HISA from going into effect basically today. That was denied, and we just got the information on that being denied this morning. So HISA right now is, unless something changes, kind of the law of the land in the racing world, at least for the racetrack safety component. Now, this has nothing to do with the medication and anti-doping program, which is still in the works. The kind of preliminary regulations were out for public comment through the HISA website up until, I believe, about yesterday. And now they will look at those comments, potentially make any changes, and then they will go on to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, for final approval. The medication and anti-doping portion of things will not go into effect until January 1st of 2023. So it really is just the racetrack safety component, which we've outlined a little bit of things on, which will require more uniformity when it comes to racetrack inspection and makeup, uniformity in jockey health protocols, a couple of new positions created to improve the safety and the welfare of the horses and the people that work around them, as well as some changes to the horseshoe requirements and what's being allowed, as well as the riding crop regulations. And so it's been a lot of debate about all of those things. Some of those things, such as the horseshoe requirements and the crop regulations as far as the type of crop that's allowed to be used, are actually, the enforcement part of that is being put off for a month. And that is because of supply issues and being able to get enough of the required elements in time for, fairness to everybody to be kind of updating their horses, and the jockeys and exercise riders updating their riding crops. There is also now uniformity in the jockey crop usage rules as far as how many strikes can be given, what the penalty structure is for going above those number of strikes. So that will be uniform across the board now as compared to varying from state to state. So that, at least provides some uniformity on the jockey front, and, what we should look for as far as that goes. Another big thing, of course, in order to be able to participate now in racing, you have to be registered through the HISA website or through the HISA organization. And you can do that through their website. There's, horsemen's groups are helping everybody get registered. And basically, it's almost any covered person, and we've gone over what a covered person is, needs to be registered, and any covered horse needs to be registered as well. And they have been working on that diligently this month. There's been some bugs in the system, and to their credit, they've admitted that, and they've worked hard to try to fix those. And the last count, I think the number I saw was between horses and people, there were about 40,000, or probably more at this point, people and horses registered through the HISA website. And they have to be registered in order to be able to race. So today is the deadline, at least for getting everybody to be registered, if you want your horse to participate starting tomorrow. So entries are still being taken, but what HISA has done is worked with the Jockey Club Encompass system, and they have been able to kind of commingle their systems. So now the racing clerk or the racing secretary will take entries. If a horse is not registered under HISA, a flag will pop up saying they are ineligible to run. If the trainer is not registered through HISA, a flag will pop up saying the horse is not eligible to run. If at least one owner or the majority owner in the case of an ownership group or whatever is not registered under HISA for that horse, the horse will not be allowed to run. If the jockey is not registered under HISA, what will be allowed is a jockey change, so the horse will not automatically be scratched. But in all those other situations that I talked about, if those registrations are not done, that horse will be scratched and not be allowed to run until those registrations are complete. There was some argument from the horsemen's groups and the legal community saying that, well, HISA never really put out a specific regulation stating that registration needed to be done. They kind of just described the process. HISA responded to that by saying it's in the statute, so it's in the law itself, that registration for the covered people and covered horses has to take place. But to kind of cover themselves, they did put forth an actual regulation that required the registration of all covered persons and horses. That was just approved by the FTC last night, so that is an improved regulation at this point. So I do expect a fair number of more registrations to come today as everybody kind of sorts through this and figure out, kind of what is going on. So still some questions, especially with racetracks or racing states and racing commissions that have, for various reasons, not agreed to partner with HISA. And there's kind of different levels of this. If people that have been following know that Texas has basically said we are not, cooperating with HISA at all because we believe that, it infringes on their state law that basically says the state and the state racing commission are the only ones that can regulate horse racing. So they are not partnering with HISA in any way, and as a result, if they are not registering their racetracks as covered racetracks, they can do that. They certainly can run, but to my understanding, the issue is then they are not, by law, allowed to export their signal outside of Texas. So they lose any simulcast money that they might garner and the tracks might garner for exporting their signal to ADWs or other tracks, simulcast outlets, things like that. And of course, that is going to be a huge hit to the purse structure in Texas, but right now, Texas is holding firm, so we're going to see exactly what happens and how their purse structure might be affected by that. There's some people that think that some horses and horsemen that really don't want to be involved with HISA at all or their oversight will move to Texas, and that might increase field size, that might increase number of horses to have running. But again, if you don't have that betting and the handle component to it, so you would actually have to get more fans that would come to Texas and handicappers that would wager in Texas to be able to do that. Texas is also a state that really does not have any kind of anything tied to casino gambling, payments from there to help bolster purses. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in those cases. Then you've got a state like Pennsylvania, where I am, and at the most recent PA State Racing Commission meeting, it was announced that almost like kind of like a hybrid type of decision was reached by the commission, where they said by their statutes and their state racing act, they are not allowed to voluntarily enter into an agreement with HISA, but they are going to do almost everything or provide everything that HISA kind of wants in their safety rules and hope that that suffices for them. To my knowledge, they did send a letter to HISA explaining everything they're going to do. If anybody follows me on Twitter or our Thoroughfan Facebook page, we have posted that letter. I've posted that letter there. My Twitter is @AnimalShelterDoc, and of course you can just search Thoroughfan on Facebook. We have posted that letter there outlining everything. To my knowledge, HISA has not responded, or at least they have not made it, the commission has not made it public any response that HISA has given to see if that is okay and how that will work. I think the biggest question some of us have in that situation is, well, how does the enforcement aspect of things work? If, let's say, a jockey is then going to be disciplined for over the number of strikes that are allowed with a riding crop, or there's some other infraction, who technically then has enforcement ability over that? Is it the HISA system, or is it still the state of PA system? Again, some of these things are just going to have to be figured out, and it's probably going to be a little bit of a bumpy road on the enforcement side of things, and on the rollout and implementation. You are looking at a very, very large scale project that is being undertaken, and really in a short period of time, comparatively, because of everything that has to be done and created. Now, There is also, for fans that were unaware, there were some senators that did write a letter to the HISA board and the HISA authority asking why they were doing certain things they were doing. And one of the big things is whether the board itself or the authority had the right to delay implementation of certain aspects of HISA, most notably the anti-doping and medication protocols and regulations. Those have been moved, as I said, to January 1st, 2023. Well, if you technically look at the statute and the law, there's really no provision for the authority to do that. So they're trying to figure out exactly who has the authority to potentially move some of these deadlines, again, even with the horseshoes and the riding crop, moving that a month out for enforcement. So we're waiting to see what HISA responds to on that. What's also interesting, though, is if the HISA organization doesn't meet certain dates, such as the July 1st date, say for anti-doping and medication, they've pushed that off, is there a penalty? And that really doesn't really seem to be laid out in the law either. So that's kind of an interesting question. And a lot of it just goes to who's allowed to make what rules and what decisions. And some things I think that probably happen with a lot of these statutes, especially federal statutes, that then give authority to other entities to promulgate regulations and things such as that. There's always going to be some of that going on. So that's kind of where we stand. Right now, technically, as far as registration goes, horses are allowed to run today, and jockeys and trainers and owners that are not registered with HISA. So today is July 1st. Today is the last day that they are allowed to do that. Starting tomorrow, the horses, the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, and really anybody else that works on the backside is supposed to be registered with HISA. So we're going to see how that rolls out. Right now, everything seems to be normal. The sky has not fallen. Hell has not frozen over. So everything seems to be at least moving forward. We are going to see what's going to happen tomorrow. And if there are a larger number of scratches or jockey changes or things that go on because HISA is now implemented. So that is, as best as I can tell, where we stand on most things. Thoroughfan will actually be having an interview with the CEO of HISA, Lisa Lazarus, in a couple of weeks. We have set up an interview with her to ask some of these questions and to see also how the rollout has been going, and look at HISA a little bit more from a fan and a handicapper's perspective, maybe just to try to get her thoughts on that and how HISA will really hopefully bring more integrity to the sport and provide the fans with really what we've wanted for a while, which is more uniformity in penalties, and hopefully, stronger penalties that are out there to kind of really dissuade cheating and things of that nature to make the sport, greater for all of us. So that is where we stand. Happy July to everybody again. Happy Canada Day to any racing fans that are watching this from the Great White North. And we're going to keep following this and seeing how things go. So until that time, I am Doc with Thoroughfan, and as always, if you are looking for the most up-to-date, accurate, and honest information involving the great sport of thoroughbred horse racing that is made specifically for you, the fan, by us, the fans, it's only one place you want to turn, and that is Thoroughfan.